The race had already come and gone by the time he stopped noticing it. It showed up the way the others had over the years: incremental, folded into direct deposit, absorbed by automatic transfers and withholding adjustments. There was no announcement attached to it beyond a short email from HR and a line change on his pay stub. He was 48 then, 2 decades into a stable corporate career, with a title that had taken years to reach and compensation that once felt abstract when he tried to imagine it in his 30s. For most of his working life, income had moved in one direction: slow at first, then steadily upward. Promotions spaced every few years, performance reviews that nudged base salary higher, occasional bonuses that arrived in late winter and briefly widened the margin between obligations and capacity. He and his spouse built their fixed life around that pattern without formally discussing it. They never said income would always grow. It simply had. The mortgage on the house in the suburbs was structured around a payment that would feel lighter as earnings rose. Property taxes increased gradually but predictably. Health insurance premiums adjusted each year, but they were buffered by the employer contribution. Retirement contributions expanded in percentage terms as income allowed. College savings deposits became automatic once the children reached elementary school. Each step seemed measured, responsible, within range. At 49, the compensation chart flattened. Not dramatically. There was no pay cut. The annual review still included language about value and leadership, but the raise was smaller. The bonus target unchanged. The company had entered a phase of cost control. Growth slowed across the sector. Management layers compressed. Titles remained. Trajectory narrowed. It did not feel like loss. It felt like arrival. Peak earning years had been discussed abstractly in financial articles and HR seminars, usually as a milestone to prepare for retirement. In his case, the peak arrived without a signal. One year's W2 slightly exceeded the next. The following year matched it. Inflation adjusted the numbers downward in real terms, even as nominal income held steady. The house payment did not flatten. Property insurance rose faster after a string of regional weather events. Healthcare costs shifted when the employer altered plan options, increasing deductibles. The children entered high school and extracurricular expenses deepened. Travel, sports, college visits, standardized test preparation all layered quietly into the monthly outflow. He had once associated financial strain with early adulthood: student loans, first mortgages, daycare costs. That period had felt tight but temporary. The understanding was that income growth would eventually overtake expenses. For years, it did. Now, the structure reversed. Expenses continued adjusting upward while income stabilized. Not catastrophically, not even visibly at first. The checking account still cleared each month. Retirement contributions continued. The brokerage account grew during strong market years. From the outside, nothing appeared constrained. Inside the household ledger, the margin narrowed. He noticed it on a Wednesday evening while reviewing year-end summaries for tax planning. The spreadsheet he had maintained for over a decade showed a pattern that had once sloped upward with reassuring consistency. The last 3 years created a plateau line. Household income clustered within a narrow band. Fixed expenses formed a separate line that intersected more frequently with discretionary categories. The realization did not carry emotion, it carried recognition. Peak earnings were not a permanent altitude, they were a brief shelf. The company's compensation structure was built around mid career acceleration and late career stability. Younger employees could still expect aggressive growth. Senior executives occupied a different tier entirely. Between those layers, existed a wide band of experienced professionals whose salaries stabilized once they reached internal pay ceilings. He occupied that band. Job security remained intact, performance strong. But upward movement in compensation had quietly ended. He recalibrated his retirement projections. The model he had built assumed modest annual raises continuing into his early 60s. When he replaced those with flat projections, the difference appeared gradual but measurable. Not alarming, not devastating, simply smaller. The timeline for optional retirement shifted by several years. He did not share this adjustment immediately. There was no urgency. Their 401k balances remained solid. Home equity had grown through years of principal reduction and property appreciation. College savings accounts were funded but not abandoned. The financial system they built still functioned, but its momentum had slowed. Around the same time, his spouse's employer restructured departments. Her position remained, but advancement prospects thinned. Combined household income, once buoyed by parallel growth, now rested on two stable but capped streams. The plateau became a shared environment. Friends in similar age brackets described comparable patterns in careful language. Raises smaller. Promotions lateral rather than upward. Bonus pools tighter. None of them described crisis, they described equilibrium. For years, responsibility had meant keeping lifestyle increases proportionate to income growth. They avoided luxury cars. Choose a practical home size relative to earnings. Maintained retirement savings discipline. Those decisions insulated them from volatility. Yet they had also assumed that peak earning years would span a broader window. In reality, the peak was narrow. The children left for college within 3 years of each other. Tuition payments transitioned from savings accounts to direct transfers. Cash flow tightened temporarily, then structurally. They had prepared for the expense, but preparation did not eliminate its weight. At 52, his annual compensation remained within 1% of what it had been 4 years earlier. Adjusted for inflation, it represented less purchasing power. Health insurance contributions increased again. The mortgage remained fixed, but property taxes did not. Home maintenance costs emerged more frequently as the house aged. Roof repairs, HVAC replacement, exterior painting. Each expense appeared ordinary in isolation. Together, they defined the stage after growth. He began noticing subtle changes in corporate tone. Younger managers brought new frameworks, new efficiency metrics. Technology investments shifted role expectations. His experience remained valued, but it no longer commanded incremental pay increases. Stability was its own reward. He did not feel underpaid. He felt capped. In earlier decades, ambition had a financial correlate. More responsibility translated to higher income. Now, additional projects produce recognition, but not structural compensation change. He accepted this quietly. The job provided healthcare, retirement contributions, and predictable income. That predictability had once been the floor beneath growth. It had become the ceiling. The household adapted without dramatic conversation. Vacations shortened in duration. Restaurant spending moderated. Charitable contributions remained steady but did not expand. Brokerage investments shifted from aggressive accumulation to balanced preservation as retirement age approached. The financial architecture they built during growth years now operated under maintenance. He revisited past tax returns stored digitally in labeled folders. The progression from mid-30s income to late 40s peak appeared impressive in hindsight. It told the story of upward mobility within a stable sector. The final entries, however, flattened into repetition. Income plateau is rarely discussed with the same intensity as early career struggle or retirement planning. It exists in between. It is not failure. It is not decline. It is simply the phase where upward motion ceases while obligations persist. He observed colleagues navigating the same terrain. Some pursued lateral moves at other firms, seeking marginal increases. Others shifted into consulting arrangements with variable income. A few accepted early retirement packages when offered. Each path contained trade offs. He remained where he was, anchored by health benefits and institutional familiarity. The plateau did not dismantle their financial life, it reshaped its trajectory. At 54, Social Security statements began arriving annually with more immediacy. Projected benefits provided a distant reference point. Retirement account balances fluctuated with market cycles but trended upward overall. The house mortgage balance continued declining on schedule. The difference lay in elasticity. When income was growing, unexpected costs felt temporary. When income is flat, unexpected costs compress. An aging parent required assisted living arrangements. Siblings contributed proportionately. The additional monthly expense entered their budget quietly, but persistently. It was manageable. It did not threaten solvency. It reduced surplus. He noticed how language shifted internally. In earlier years, financial decisions revolved around opportunity, maximizing growth, accelerating savings, increasing optionality. Now conversations centered on durability, maintaining coverage, preserving capital, avoiding disruption. The emotional tone remained even. There was no regret attached to prior decisions. The house had served them well. The children received strong educations. Retirement accounts were funded consistently. Yet the assumption that income would keep rising until retirement proved inaccurate. Peak earning years had passed without ceremony. He reviewed industry salary surveys out of curiosity. Median compensation for his role aligned almost exactly with his current pay. Younger hires entered at lower salaries with potential to rise. Senior executives exceeded him significantly. The structure was clear. He occupied the middle of a distribution that had little vertical movement left. He thought back to his 30s when the idea of plateau felt distant. Back then, the horizon seemed open ended. Now the horizon felt defined. Healthcare discussions with peers became more detailed. Premiums, deductibles, coverage changes. Approaching Medicare age carried its own calculations. The employer plan that once felt standard now represented a critical component of overall compensation. Leaving the company would require replacing it at market rates. Mobility decreased not from fear but from arithmetic. The market experienced a downturn one autumn. Retirement balances dipped temporarily. In earlier decades, such declines felt like buying opportunities. With fewer working years remaining, volatility carried different weight. He did not alter allocations dramatically. He observed. The house at dusk looked the same as it had for years. Lawn trimmed, exterior steady. Inside, kitchen appliances showed signs of age. Replacement costs entered the spreadsheet. He realized that financial responsibility in midlife often means maintaining a structure built during expansion while navigating contraction in growth rate. No collapse, no windfall. Just steadiness layered with incremental pressure. The plateau extended into its sixth year. He turned 56 without a change in title or compensation band. Annual reviews continued. Merit increases matched cost of living adjustments at best. Inflation eroded silently. Net income remained stable in nominal terms.
Retirement projections stabilized at a later date than once assumed.
Not dramatically later, enough to be noticeable. He and his spouse spoke about the shift more directly one evening after reconciling annual expenses. The conversation was measured. They had done what they intended to do: avoided excessive debt, funded retirement, supported their children, maintained insurance coverage. The plateau did not negate those accomplishments, it framed them. There would be no late career income surge. Peak earnings had already occurred. The realization did not alter daily routine. He continued commuting to the same office, participating in the same meetings, completing the same quarterly reports. Direct deposit continued arriving on schedule. The financial life they built remained intact. But the slope had changed. He closed the spreadsheet and left the dining table cleared except for a single folder containing tax documents. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, porch lights on, mortgage payments being drafted from dozens of similar households. Other professionals likely reviewing similar numbers. Income stability after peak years does not announce itself. It settles in. It narrows margins. It lengthens timelines. It shifts the meaning of responsibility from growth to preservation. The race had come and gone, and nothing else moved upward after it.